Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
And so this one is called, this is on my Substack at donlemon.com. The Fire This Time, Why Black Voters Are Sitting This One Out. We've carried democracy long enough. Don't expect us to keep saving it if it won't save us. Because you might have noticed something at the recent rallies against Donald Trump and Elon Musk, something that stood out precisely because of its absence. The crowds were big, I write. The signs were bold, the outrage was loud, but Black folks, we weren't there in large numbers. And maybe it's time we talked honestly about why. Because we're tired of always being expected to show up, to vote like our lives depend on it, because they do. Tired of carrying the burden of democracy on our backs while others vote their wallets, their privilege, their fear. Tired of being called heroes every 4 years and then ghosts in between. We've saved democracy from itself more times than history dares to count. When it comes time to cash in on our promises, on the promises made during election season, we're left holding nothing but slogans and broken trust. Minorities in the workforce, whether you're Asian, Latino, all of that. And many times the folks in those communities vote against us. The Indian American community vote against us. Even though on the backs of our ancestors, you have the rights that you have to be an immigrant in this country. But you don't think about that during the election. Because you are, and I'm just being honest here, you're voting selfishly. You think you're voting for your own interest. You're voting because you want the proximity to whiteness. A lot of you don't believe that you are minorities. You don't believe that you're Black. You don't believe that your skin is Black. You think that you are different because somehow your skin is, maybe a different shade of Black, or your hair is a different texture or whatever. But you are also a minority in this country. But somehow you don't know the history. You manage to ignore it or forget in your plight to be associated with white people. I'm a brown person or whatever. I'm not Black, I'm Indian. Okay, fine. But show some respect and have some sense of history. You should be thanking Dr. King and Black people and Malcolm X and everyone else for fighting for your rights.
Seems Don Lemonade's trying to reinvent himself these days. He talked about the hypocrisy of these minority groups who have tried to play both sides. Nice to hear him admit to this, especially because he spent years not saying it. While he was engaging in stupid attention-whoring stunts like his N-word segments, he should have been leading the charge to call this stuff out. And when it comes to Black voters, he's the last one I want to hear from. Black voters have been sick and tired of playing the game of maintaining America's political equilibrium. We've been saying that for decades, but it's not until the Black media started banging the drum that it's finally become a political force. But I do find it perversely amusing that Don Lemonade is trying to scribble his opinions on Substack that Black people are tired of voting for nothing and Black voters are sitting this one out. Well, what I want to know is, why is it that for so many years he was saying this?
Troy, if Donald Trump says he's doing so well with Blacks and Hispanics, then why would the GOP not want everyone to be able to turn out to vote? Why not have as many places as possible? Why put out a...
Let me be clear. I think every person should vote. I think we should make it as easy as possible. I think in order to get on a subway or on a bus or on an airplane, you have to produce a government-issued piece of identification that says, I'm Corey Lewandowski. You should have to do it when you go to vote.
Corey, let me tell you something. I used to think like you did until I actually sat down with someone like Barbara Walters, who did not drive for her entire life, never learned how to drive because she lived in New York City, didn't have a piece of identification. When you meet older people who live in rural areas, who don't drive, who don't have identification cards.
Over 25 state legislatures made it more difficult to vote. And guess what? Every single one of them were Republican. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's no big deal, why is it that it's only Republican legislatures that impose voting restrictions?
This is a decades-old story, Derek, of voter suppression. Yet today we're still hearing examples of this happening all over the country. What is going on? Why is that?
But I want to make sure that you're in front of the television right now, because what I'm about to show you and tell you is very important for the country. Because what you're about to see right now is the face of the fight for your right to vote. Here it is. And this is Georgia State Representative Park Cannon.
Why is the governor trying to sign something in private?
She is being arrested and removed from the state capitol after knocking on that door during Governor Brian Kemp's signing of that
the governor is signing a bill that affects all
assault really on your vote, what results to an assault on your vote. This bill is about nothing less than taking away the right to vote. That is all it is, plain
plain and simple. A right that generations of Americans fought and died for. And the governor, proud to sign it.
Now that's a far cry from how he's talking today, because that's the way he's been talking since at least 2016, as if he didn't know the actual reasons that black voter turnout was declining. Even career DNC shills like James Carville, the Cajun Skeletor, has been admitting that black voter turnout's been trending downward since at least 2013. That's since the second Obama term. Yes, Republicans are out here trying to be the usual racists that they are, but in 2020, black people demonstrated that if we really want to show up, I mean for real want to, then even the party of open racism can't stop us. What suppresses the black vote are not Republicans passing nuisance legislation. What suppresses the black vote is when black people put Democrats in power and then those Democrats prioritize everyone else over us and ignore us completely. And then, as we've seen since Obama took office, Democrats openly attack us, calling us thugs, and people like Kamala Harris tell us to our faces that she's not going to do anything for us. That's what suppresses black votes. But apparently Don Lemon didn't know that until just this week. This is why you need the black media. Don Lemon, the white media suck-up and Democratic Party shill, wasn't talking like this in 2016 or 2018 or 2021. But the black media was. See, we haven't changed our position one iota. That's one of the perks of operating in black people's interest and not our own. When you make it your hallmark to tell the truth as opposed to keeping your white media paymasters happy, you don't have to do a 180 years later. Instead of complaining about Republicans being Republicans, Lemonade should have been asking why the Democrats weren't running on a platform of reinforcing all of those laws that the Republicans have been busy undermining, and how the Democrats would put judges in place who wouldn't overturn or attack this legislation. Democrats were put in control of the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2020. They were put there by black voters. And what did Democrats do with it? Did they pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act? No, of course not. But Biden did make sure to divert COVID money to the police. He did make sure to do that. And he sent his Solicitor General to the Supreme Court to argue on behalf of police to weaken Miranda protections. That's what Biden was doing instead of trying to get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were busy making sure that their big donors, even ones from foreign countries like Israel, would be reassured that under them, nothing was going to change. That's what the Democrats were doing after black people put them back in control of the government. By the way, while Don Lemonade spent years and years and years being hot and bothered about the Republicans and their voter restriction laws, my question is, why wasn't this an issue after last year when the Orange Man won re-election? Why is it that since November of last year, no one on the white left, including Don Lemon, has been going ham pointing out Republican voter suppression laws as the reason that Trump carried those states this time around? Shouldn't that have been the very first thing and the only thing that these people have talked about? Shouldn't they just been harping nonstop? It's those voter suppression laws, I tell you, those voter suppression laws. Instead, they haven't said a thing about them, nothing at all. So apparently even they don't think it was that important. Seems the real audience for all of this false political hysteria was supposed to be black voters. They were hoping to make black voters angry or scared, but the real reason that Democrats are all up in hysterics about voter suppression laws is because they're concerned about illegal aliens. Democrats are trying to find a way to put in place a new voter base, one that's not going to be susceptible to the demands that black people have been making. In fact, in Chuck Schumer's home state of New York, a law got passed that would make it where, quote-unquote, legal non-citizens would have the right to vote in municipal elections. Now, that law got struck down by the courts, but it just goes to show Democrats are trying to put the legal infrastructure in place that would make it where people who are not even citizens would have the right to vote. That's the real reason why you see Democrats saying, well, we don't want to have laws that make it where you got to produce some sort of driver's license or whatever, some sort of documentation. They're not concerned about black people. If they were concerned about black people, they would be stepping forward regarding reparations. They'd be stepping forward regarding an anti-black hate crime law. They're not doing that. This is about illegal aliens, same way when they had that so-called marriage equality law that they passed. What that was actually about it was about protecting gay marriage. They claimed that, well, it's marriages between black people and non-black people. We're trying to protect these biracial marriages. Black people are who we're trying to protect. No. This was the defense of the LGBT Marriage Act, but they didn't think that they could actually sell that, so they had to attach black people to it and claim, well, we're doing this for black people. That's their favorite deflection to hide behind. We happen to be their favorite shield. But you haven't heard Don Lemonade say anything about that either, have you? He should have been pointing out how Democrats have been ignoring black voters for decades and attacking us in the last 10 to 15 years, and that's why we began sitting out elections. But then again, Don Lemon's been ignoring us too. And now that he doesn't have CNN or Elon Musk to prop him up, now he's trying to see if he can become some sort of sanitized, soft around the edges faux radical, I guess. Listen up, Don. An old dog like you simply cannot learn any new tricks. Don Lemonade has spent his entire adult life caping for the white left. As I've shown you, this guy's been ready to jump out a window telling black people how important it is that we vote. And he's also been talking that crap about racial allies and all the rest of it. He's been peddling the exact same talking points. But like roly-poly, he's having to change his tune because he simply can't deny where things are going. Not if he wants to try to pretend to be relevant. This is what happens whenever these guys try to enter spaces like this where we have the upper hand. Roly-poly was all loud and profane, as usual, when he was saying the Democrats need to forget about trying to appeal to younger black voters, and instead focus on the black baby boomers, because they turn out to vote more consistently. Now remember, when these shills and tools give their expertise, what they're actually doing is they're trying to stick up for their own shallow, limited frame of knowledge. See, when Roly-Poly was saying Democrats need to talk to these old heads, what he was saying was, I've gotten in with the church crowd and these decrepit social groups like the NAACP. So y'all need to pay me to give you the hookup to my informal network of geriatric people's folks. That's where he was coming from. And then Kamala Harris was begging black men, specifically black men of Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z, to support her failing campaign. That made headlines because it couldn't be denied. Obama ran his stupid mouth about it. They thought that they were going to pivot to black female voters, and they found out, no, black women voters are trending in the same direction as black men. Ain't gonna do no gender divide this time around. And after that, Roly-Poly began singing a brand new tune. Now suddenly younger black voters mattered. After he said that they didn't. As usual, if you're not following the black media, you'll always be the last to know. By the way, Roly and Don, that's one of the catchphrases that I created over the last 17 years. You're not free to use it, by the way. So, after years of the black media and the black grassroots saying that all these other groups are going to have to hold their own, that we're done putting on the cape for anyone else, Don Lemonade suddenly is trying to act like he just discovered this fact. Like this is some sort of recent development that he is unearthing and he's going to explain it. Now, it was Don Lemonade's cable colleagues like Joy Reid and Shireen Mitchell who were saying that anyone who says to sit out the elections for black folks unless our demands are met, those people are Russian bots. MSNBC gave Joy Reid all the airtime in the world to tell lies like that, and she specifically singled out black people and the black media and our demand for reparations. Now, where was Don Lemonade when this was going on? He was still on CNN at the time. What did he have to say about that? Nothing. Don Lemonade has no connection to the black media because he's not part of us. He happens to be a stranger. He is an alien. He is an intruder. If he was an actual journalist, then what he would have been doing is referencing us and what we've been doing long before now. But then again, his entire plan is to try to subvert us, if he can.
We are always expected to perform empathy, to show up for everyone else's pain, while our own trauma is constantly minimized or ignored. We've always stood up for our brothers and sisters across communities, across oceans, because that's who we are. That's who we've had to be. That's who we've had to be because of our own history and relationship, not only to America, but to the world. But standing for you is not the same as standing with you. And right now, after the choices so many of you have made, not just in the distant past, but in the recent, very present moment, that solidarity feels like a one-way street. Are you guys hearing me? So when the outrage machine gears up against Elon Musk and Donald Trump, two billionaires with more in common than either side wants to admit, black folks are asking, where were you when we needed you? When voting rights were gutted, where were you? When police reform stalled, where were you? Hello, you guys love to talk about John Lewis. What about the Voting Rights Act that he fought for? Where are you with fighting for that and putting out statements and standing up for that? And where are you when police reform stalled even after George Floyd? When the promises made to us turned to dust. This isn't apathy, it's strategy. It's a refusal to be used. It is a declaration. We will not keep setting ourselves on fire to keep this country warm while others roast marshmallows on the flames.
You hear what he just said? That little litany that he listed? Basically, he crib noted everything that I've been saying for the last 5 years, pointing out that Biden and Harris made all kinds of phony promises to the black community, and then as soon as black voters put them in office, they immediately went back on all of it. You know, it would have been nice to have Don Lemon out there saying the same thing back then. Here he is bringing up the rear, a position he understands well. Don Lemonade calling himself invoking the word black. It just sounds so weird coming out of his mouth. When he's not doing that kind of mamby-pamby, watered-down milquetoast gibberish that he was doing on CNN, he sits there and says black now, and it just sounds so phony. I mean, we've been saying this stuff for years. We've been saying that our vote had not translated into any tangible benefits and that because of that we were sick and tired of playing the game. And here he is, this Donnie come lately, and he thinks to himself that apparently he discovered fire? You gotta be kidding me. He's not doing this because he suddenly had some moment of clarity. This is a white media tool trying to pretend like he's speaking to our sentiments, trying to do some sort of half-brain pivot, when in reality, he's actually trying to co-opt what we're doing. This is the exact same thing that we've seen from a number of little black sock puppets for white power. Every 6 months or so, the white media comes along and has some new gang of clowns that they're claiming are the new black leaders, and these are the people speaking up for the black street. They try this mess every 6 months, and now you got Don Lemonade trying his incompetent little hand at it. I guess he figures he's going to be the new Negro whisperer, because that's what this is meant to do. He thinks to himself that he's going to be talking to white folks. I can tell you what it is the black community thinks. No, he can't. He has no clue what we think because he doesn't care what we think. What he's trying to do is to find a way to say a few things that sound credible in the beginning, but before you know it, this guy immediately pivots to trying to push the old gender wedge nonsense.
When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, there was global grief. But soon after, some in the Jewish community and even beyond turned their focus not on the perpetrators, but on the black public figures like Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama. They wanted statements, outrage. And they weren't alone. Beyonce, LeBron James, even Meghan Markle. I think that I am channeling and relaying the views of many people of color in this country. Generally, the majority of us vote to save democracy and to not only to save democracy, right, to save women's reproductive rights. And that means all women of all colors. We vote in that direction. To help protect women in the workforce.
Now, did you notice how he tried to sneak that one in? We went from talking about black people in general to talking about black women in specific. Now we're talking about people of color. Yeah, so you know that train is never late. That's exactly what this was all about. Bait and switch from the beginning, the same old rhetorical bait and switch. The headline says black, but when you read the body of the article, or in his case, his little opinion piece, they switch the words up. They start transitioning to what he really wanted to say. The same old colorblind, non-black, deracinated song and dance. Because this is the point that he actually wanted to reach. It was to have black folks lit around by the nose so he can take us in one big circle right back to where we were before. And it wasn't about black people, it's about everybody. This is the point that he actually wanted to make. He stopped talking about black real quick. He changed his words in the middle of his little spiel. That's what he thinks he's actually doing. He's trying to bring back the old black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party line to see if there's any ego stroking that he can do, whether or not that's going to work. That's why he invoked Kamala Harris. It was meant to be a subtle way to tiptoe from saying black people to saying just black women, because this is a rhetorical trial balloon. It's one of the white media shills trying to see if they can appeal to black women through empty lip service, and then next he'll be saying that Democrats need to feel black women's pain. Of course, there's not going to be demands to go along with that. Certainly nothing about reparations or an anti-black hate crime law. There's not going to be anything about that. The flowery prose that he was using, the unnecessary way that he frames his sentences so as not to offend certain non-black readers. This is a guy who's auditioning to get himself a guest columnist gig at The Atlantic or Time or Newsweek. That's what this reads like. It's the same kind of watered-down, milquetoast, bland gibberish that's meant to appeal to that crowd. So we see Don Lemonade's back in business for himself. The reason white power has these chumps on the air or in print is if they can demonstrate that they have the power to lead us around by the nose. When white power sees that they can't, then there's no downside to chucking them out the window. This is a guy who happily, cheerfully kept company with the likes of Kamal Dumbbell and others. This is not a man who is able to actually articulate what it is that black people are thinking and what it is that our issues and interests are. This is somebody who's trying to do the same old, Democrats should understand that black voters aren't happy, but if Democrats would just go ahead and give black people a pat on the back, give them a hug, then everything will be fine. No, Don Lemon's phony, faux radical routine isn't going to fool anybody, because his track record of doing the opposite is simply too long and too great for him to overcome. And there's a black media out here who's going to make sure that when he comes along trying to talk differently, we're going to remind you of what he really believes and where he's really stood. We know the game because we've seen it too many times from these cable news cast-offs like Bakari's Sellout and Angela Rye with the lettuce and tomatoes on the side, April Ryan and others. These guys call themselves trying to put together some sort of so-called podcast, but the real thing that they're trying to do is, just like BET and TV One and others, they're trying to find a way to get themselves a handful of black viewers, which they hope to then go ahead and sell to a white advertiser for profit. That's the game that these guys always try to do. Same thing Roly-Poly's been trying to do. Trying to get himself a following so that he can then go ahead and take that hopefully to some white media company, or better yet to the Democrats, and parlay this into some sort of permanent white media gig, or better yet a consulting job with the Democrats. He's already gotten money from Kamala Harris's campaign and he wants to make that his full-time profession. And Don Lemon is no different. He's trying to do the exact same hustle. Putting feathers up your butt doesn't make you a duck, Don. And repeating the words of the black media after you spent years denying it doesn't make you right either. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Gwendolyn Langston, Wesley Monroe, Novana Beta, Nora Brown, and Janitha Blue. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.